The aroma of cinnamon and pine filled our family home, wrapping around me like a warm embrace as I stood in the dimly lit living room. Christmas lights twinkled on the tree, casting colorful shadows that danced across the walls. I glanced at the old family photos lining the mantel, memories frozen in time. But this year, the joy felt different, overshadowed by an unexpected message from Dad that echoed in my mind. "Christmas is better without you." My heart sank, a heavy weight settling in my stomach. I had only replied with a single word, but the shockwaves of that moment rippled through our family, revealing cracks I hadn't noticed before. As I prepared for the holiday, I couldn't shake off the tension that coiled around us like a thick fog. My fingers brushed against the crisp wrapping paper of the gift I had chosen for him, a token of my love and hope for reconciliation. Yet as I sat at the kitchen table, the laughter of my siblings felt distant, almost mocking. The awkwardness hung in the air like an uninvited guest, palpable and suffocating. I could feel my heart racing, each beat a reminder of my father's harsh words. Would I be able to enjoy this holiday, or would it be marred by our unresolved conflicts? In the midst of the festive chaos, I recalled a time not so long ago when our home was filled with laughter, when the holidays meant joy instead of this biting tension. I could hear the echoes of our shared moments, the warmth of our family traditions, the way we would gather around the table, sharing stories and love. But now, the thought of facing Dad filled me with dread. Would he even want to see me after what he had said? My mind raced with possibilities, each scenario more daunting than the last. I clutched my gift tightly, the edges digging into my palm as if it could somehow ground me amid this storm of emotions. As I made my way to the dining room, the sound of clinking glasses and cheerful chatter reached my ears. I hesitated at the doorway, the laughter of my family bouncing off the walls, but it felt like a barrier separating me from the warmth I craved. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what lay ahead. This Christmas might not be the celebration I had hoped for, but I was determined to navigate the minefield of emotions and mend the fractures that threatened to tear us apart. With every step forward, I could feel the anticipation and tension building within me, ready to burst forth at any moment. The gathering would be a test, and I could only hope that love would prevail over the harsh words that lingered in the air. I sat at my kitchen table, the sunlight filtering through the window, casting a warm glow that clashed with the chill in my heart. My phone vibrated against the wood, a reminder of the unresolved tension hanging between my father and me. I had sent him a message earlier that day, a tentative olive branch wrapped in hope. "Can we talk?" The three little dots danced on the screen, teasing me with the possibility of a response. My hands trembled slightly as I waited, the anticipation almost unbearable. Just then, Alex walked in, his brow furrowed with concern as he caught sight of my anxious expression. "You okay?" he asked, his voice soft, yet laced with an urgency that pulled at my heartstrings. I nodded, but the truth was, I felt anything but okay. The weight of my father's words loomed over me like a storm cloud, threatening to unleash its fury. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my racing thoughts. I need to reconnect with him, you know?" I sighed, running my fingers through my hair in frustration. "But I'm terrified of what he'll say. What if he just shuts me out again?" Alex leaned against the counter, arms crossed, watching me with those knowing eyes. "You won't know until you try, Mia. Maybe he's just as scared as you are," he replied, a hint of encouragement in his tone. I wanted to believe him, but the pit in my stomach tightened at the thought of facing my father. Memories of past confrontations flooded my mind, each one more painful than the last. Later that day, I met Sarah at our favorite coffee shop, the aroma of fresh brews swirling around us like a comforting embrace. As I stirred my drink, I couldn't help but share my worries. "What if this is it, Sarah? What if I lose him for good?" I whispered, the fear spilling over. Her eyes softened, and she reached across the table, squeezing my hand. "You have to be honest with him, Mia. You deserve to be heard. Don't let fear dictate your future," she urged, her voice steady and reassuring. I appreciated her support, yet the thought of that first confrontation with Dad hung heavily in the air, a looming specter I couldn't shake off. I left the cafe feeling a mix of confusion and sadness, knowing that the real battle lay ahead at the family gathering. My heart ached for connection, but my mind was clouded with apprehension. The path to reconciliation seemed fraught with obstacles, and I couldn't help but wonder if I had the strength to navigate it all. The air in the family meeting room felt thick, almost suffocating, as I sat across the table from Dad. The walls, painted a muted beige, seemed to close in on me, amplifying the tension that hung in the air. I could almost taste the bitterness of our unresolved issues, a stark contrast to the sweet aroma of cookies that wafted from the kitchen. I fidgeted with the napkin on my lap, tearing it into tiny pieces, each rip echoing my frustration. It was as if the very fabric of our family was unraveling before me, and I was powerless to stop it. "You just don't understand, Mia," Dad's voice cut through the silence like a knife, his eyes blazing with a mix of anger and hurt. I could feel my heart racing, the pulse pounding in my ears as the words hung in the air. "You think you can just walk in here and act like nothing happened?" I clenched my fists under the table, every muscle in my body tensing as I fought the urge to lash out. Memories of past arguments flooded my mind, each one a reminder of how quickly things could spiral out of control. "I'm trying to reach out to you," I shot back, my voice trembling with emotion. I could feel the heat rising to my cheeks, a mix of anger and desperation. "Do you even care how your words affect me?" There was a moment of silence, and I could see the flicker of surprise in his eyes, but it quickly faded into a hardened glare. It was as if I had crossed an invisible line, one that marked the boundary of our unspoken rules. Sarah, sitting beside me, offered a reassuring squeeze on my arm, her presence a small comfort amidst the chaos. I glanced at her, hoping for a spark of encouragement to reignite my courage. "You can do this, Mia. Just breathe," she whispered softly, reminding me to ground myself in the moment. But as I turned back to Dad, the weight of his stubbornness bore down on me like a heavy fog, threatening to engulf any glimmer of hope that remained. I took a deep breath, attempting to steady my racing heart, but the frustration bubbled over. "This isn't just about you, Dad. It's about us, our family." My voice cracked slightly, betraying the torrent of emotions swirling within. "How can we move forward if you refuse to even listen?" The sound of my words hung in the air like a challenge, yet I could see his walls rise higher, fortified by years of pride and resentment. The silence that followed was deafening, each second stretching into eternity as I searched his face for any sign of understanding. Instead, I was met with an impenetrable wall, a stubborn refusal to acknowledge the hurt we had both been carrying. I felt a tear escape, hot and unwelcome, trailing down my cheek as I realized how hopeless this felt. How could I ever bridge the gap between us when he was so unwilling to meet me halfway? My heart ached and the weight of the injustice settled heavily on my shoulders, a burden I had never asked to bear. The tension in my chest tightened like a vice, and as I sat alone in my room, the flickering candlelight cast ominous shadows on the walls. The familiar scent of pine from the Christmas tree downstairs mixed with the stale air of my solitude, creating a dissonance that mirrored my emotions. I had received a phone call earlier that day, a concerning message from Sarah that sent my heart into a tailspin. She had heard whispers of family drama swirling around us, rumors of my father's escalating anger and how it had affected my siblings. Those words echoed in my mind, amplifying the despair that had already taken root. I leaned back against the plush cushions of my bed, the fabric soft yet suffocating, as I replayed the conversation in my head. "Mia, I just wanted to give you a heads up. Dad's been tense and it's spilling over. Be careful when you see him." The worry in her voice was palpable, and I felt a pang of guilt for dragging her into this mess. Yet I was left wondering if I was walking into a confrontation that would shatter any remaining hope of reconciliation. My fingers trembled as I scrolled through my messages, staring at the last text I had sent Dad. "Can we talk?" The three little dots that appeared and disappeared felt like a cruel tease, a reminder of my helplessness. What if he refused? What if I ended up hurt again, left to pick up the pieces of my shattered expectations? I closed my eyes, attempting to summon the courage I desperately needed. Just then, a soft knock on the door broke through my swirling thoughts, and Alex stepped in, his expression a mix of concern and determination. "Hey, I've been thinking about what you said earlier. Do you want to talk?" His presence brought a flicker of warmth, grounding me in the moment. I nodded, even though my heart was still heavy with uncertainty. "It's just, I don't know how to face him after everything." "The thought of it makes my stomach churn," I confessed, my voice barely above a whisper. It felt as if I was standing on the edge of a precipice, teetering between fear and the need for resolution. Alex leaned against the doorframe, his eyes locking onto mine with an intensity that urged me to dig deeper. "You can't let fear control you, Mia. What if this is your chance to clear the air?" His words hung in the air, a challenge I couldn't ignore. The thought of confronting Dad filled me with dread, yet a flicker of determination ignited within me. As I contemplated my next steps, the weight of my father's words loomed over me, urging me to fight for the connection we once had. I realized that to heal, I needed to confront the past head-on, no matter how painful. And with that realization, I felt a spark of resolve ignite, pushing me to plan my approach for the inevitable confrontation. The air in my room felt charged with a mix of anticipation and dread as I sat at my desk, staring at the blank page before me. My pen hovered above the paper, an unyielding barrier between my thoughts and the expression of them. I could almost hear the soft rustle of Sarah's voice echoing in my mind, urging me to find the right words to bridge the chasm that had formed between my father and me. A faint scent of pine from the Christmas tree wafted through the window, a bittersweet reminder of happier times. Each breath I took felt heavy with the weight of unresolved emotions, a swirling storm of hope and disappointment. I had invited Sarah over for a brainstorming session, hoping that together we could conjure a plan that would lead to some semblance of peace. As she settled into my room, the warmth of her presence was a comfort amidst the chaos swirling in my heart. "Okay, let's think about this," she said, her eyes sparkling with determination. "What do you want to say to him?" I bit my lip, contemplating her question. The words I had rehearsed in my mind felt inadequate, like a poorly stitched quilt trying to cover a vast gaping hole of hurt. "I want to tell him how much his words hurt me, but I also want him to understand that I'm trying to move forward," I confessed, my voice barely above a whisper. Tears pricked at the corners of my eyes. "But what if he dismisses me again?" The thought sent a shiver down my spine, a reminder of the pain I had endured before. Sarah nodded, her expression softening. "Then you'll just have to be stronger. You deserve to be heard, Mia. Don't let fear paralyze you." Her words ignited a flicker of determination within me. I reached for my laptop, opening a new document, ready to pour my heart out. As I typed, the words began to flow, weaving together my hopes for reconciliation and the fears that gripped me. I wrote about the love I still felt for my father, the longing for our family to heal, and the hurt that lingered like a shadow. Each word was a step closer to confronting the reality of our fractured relationship. After a while, I paused, glancing at Sarah, who was quietly sipping her coffee, her eyes filled with understanding. "How do you feel now?" she asked, breaking the silence. I took a deep breath, the scent of coffee mixed with the lingering aroma of cinnamon from the kitchen, creating a strangely comforting atmosphere. I don't know, a bit lighter. But also scared to put it all out there," I admitted, my voice trembling slightly. This was a fragile moment, a delicate balance between hope and fear of disappointment. Later, as I lay in bed, I replayed the day's events in my mind. The words I had written felt like a lifeline, yet the reality of my father's potential reaction loomed over me like a storm cloud. I clutched my phone tightly, the cold metal pressing against my palm as I considered sending him my letter, but the fear of rejection gripped me once more. Would he read it? Would he care? The uncertainty gnawed at me, a reminder of the emotional distance that felt insurmountable. I closed my eyes, wishing for the courage to follow through on my plan, to push past the fear that had held me captive for far too long. With each passing moment, I felt the urge to reach out grow stronger, fueled by the hope that maybe this time could be different. Perhaps I could break through the barriers of silence that had built up between us, if only I could find the right moment to speak. As I finally drifted off to sleep, the weight of my intentions settled beside me, a promise to fight for the connection I so desperately wanted to restore. The tension at the family dinner reached a boiling point, the air thick with unspoken words and simmering emotions. I could feel the heat radiating off my father, his hands clenched around his fork, the silverware glinting ominously under the warm glow of the chandelier. As the laughter of my siblings faded into an uncomfortable silence, I took a deep breath, my heart pounding as I weighed the risk of speaking out. The moment felt monumental, charged with a gravity that made everything else fade away. This was my chance to confront him, to voice the hurt that had festered for far too long. "Dad," I began, my voice trembling slightly, but the determination surged within me. The eyes of my family turned toward me, their gazes a mix of curiosity and apprehension. "We need to talk about what you said. Your words hurt me more than you can understand." The words felt heavy on my tongue, each syllable a step closer to the truth I had been avoiding. I could feel the tension in the room shift, a palpable energy crackling between us, and the silence stretched into an eternity. His eyes narrowed, and I saw the defensiveness wash over him like a storm cloud. "You always twist things, Mia," he snapped, his voice rising, a sharp contrast to the soft ambience of the Christmas decorations around us. "You think it's always about you." I felt a rush of anger swell, the injustice of his accusation igniting a fire within me. "It is about me," I retorted, unable to hold back. "You make it about me every time you refuse to acknowledge how I feel." The room fell silent, the weight of my confession hanging in the air like a thick fog. I could feel my siblings' eyes darting between us, the tension palpable. In that moment, I realized the confrontation was no longer just about him. It was about all of us, the wounds we carried silently. The silence that followed was deafening, each second stretching into a painful reminder of the truths we had avoided for too long. I could see the flicker of surprise in his eyes, quickly replaced by a hardened glare. My heart raced, caught in the crossfire of my desire for reconciliation and the fear of losing him all over again. This was it, the turning point. The showdown I had dreaded and yearned for at once. Would my words pierce through the defenses he had built, or would they bounce back, leaving me more isolated than before? As I sat at my desk, the dim light of my lamp flickered, casting shadows that danced across the walls, mirroring the turmoil within me. The scent of pine from the Christmas tree wafted through the open window, mingling with the stale air of unresolved tensions. I felt a knot tighten in my stomach, a mix of dread and determination swirling inside me. With every breath, I could almost hear my father's harsh words echoing in my mind, fueling my resolve to confront him, yet the fear of his reaction loomed large. Sarah was sprawled across my bed, her fingers tapping rhythmically against her knee, a sign of her own impatience. "Mia, we need a solid plan. You can't just walk in there without knowing what you want to say," she urged, her voice steady and calm, yet tinged with the urgency of our situation. I nodded, knowing she was right. The stakes felt impossibly high. This wasn't just about me anymore, it was about our fractured family. Taking a deep breath, I pulled out my laptop, the cool surface grounding me as I opened a new document. I began typing furiously, pouring out my emotions into each line. I wrote about the pain I felt from his words, the disappointment that had festered over the years, and my desperate desire for understanding. What if he doesn't respond the way I hope? I mused aloud, the tremor in my voice betraying my anxiety. Sarah leaned closer, her expression softening as she considered my words. "Then at least you'll have said your piece. You can't control how he reacts, but you can control how you express yourself," she reminded me. Her words struck a chord, igniting a flicker of courage amidst the fear. I paused, reflecting on the past grievances that had piled up, each one a brick in the wall that now stood between us. The memories of family gatherings tainted by silent arguments and unspoken resentments flooded my mind, and I knew I had to address them head-on. As I crafted my letter, I felt a strange sense of liberation. Each sentence was a step toward reclaiming my voice in a family that had silenced me for too long. Finally, I glanced at Sarah, who was watching me intently, a hint of pride in her eyes. "This is your moment, Mia. You're taking control of your narrative. Just remember, whatever happens, you're not alone in this," she reassured me. I felt a wave of gratitude wash over me for her unwavering support, a lifeline in the storm of emotions I was navigating. With renewed determination, I continued writing, ready to face whatever came next, knowing that the aftermath of this confrontation would shape the future of our family. The dining room felt electric, the tension palpable as I stood at the head of the table, surrounded by my family. The soft glow of the holiday lights reflected off the polished wood, casting a warm ambience that clashed with the storm brewing inside me. My heart pounded in my chest, each beat echoing my fear and determination. I could feel the weight of my father's gaze, heavy and scrutinizing, as I prepared to speak the words that had been building within me for so long. "Dad, I need to talk to you," I began, my voice surprisingly steady despite the tremor in my hands. There was a moment of silence, the clinking of silverware and hushed conversations fading into a heavy stillness. I could see my siblings exchanging glances, their expressions a mix of curiosity and concern. Dad's brow furrowed, a clear signal that he was bracing himself for what was to come. Taking a deep breath, I pressed on, the words spilling out like a long-awaited confession. "Your message, Christmas is better without you, it hurt more than you can imagine. It felt like a rejection, like you were dismissing not just me, but our entire family. I just want to be heard, to be understood. I want us to find a way back to each other." My voice cracked slightly as I spoke, the raw emotion threatening to overwhelm me. The room was silent, save for the soft crackling of the fireplace. I glanced around, catching the apprehensive faces of my siblings, who seemed frozen in time. Dad's expression shifted from defensiveness to something softer, almost pained. "Mia, I didn't mean it like that," he said, his voice low but steady, yet the way he avoided my gaze felt like a fracture in our conversation. "But that's how it felt, Dad," I pressed, my heart racing. "I've been trying to connect with you, to heal these wounds, but every time I reach out, it feels like you push me away even more. I don't want to lose you, but I can't keep pretending everything is okay when it's not." The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning, and I felt a rush of vulnerability wash over me, mixed with an exhilarating sense of liberation. In that moment, I dared to hope. The silence stretched as I waited for his response, my breath catching with anticipation. My family's reactions were a blur, but I could feel their eyes on me, urging me to hold my ground. Would he understand? Would he finally see the pain his words had caused? The weight of the moment felt monumental, and I knew that this was our chance for closure, even if it risked further division. As the seconds ticked by, I felt my heart race anew, knowing that the path forward hinged on his reply. I had laid my heart bare, and now it was time to see if it would be met with compassion or further rejection. I stood there, vulnerable yet resolute, ready to face whatever would come next in this pivotal moment that could change everything. The air in the living room felt lighter as I reflected on the confrontation with Dad. The flickering candles cast dancing shadows on the walls, and the faint scent of pine mixed with the lingering aroma of our holiday meal. I could still hear the echoes of my voice, raw and trembling, cutting through the tension that had enveloped our family for so long. After my emotional speech, a heavy silence had settled over the room, each family member seemingly lost in their own thoughts. As I sat there, I noticed the shift in Dad's demeanor. His initial defensiveness had softened, revealing the hurt that lay beneath the surface. I felt a surge of hope, a flicker of possibility that perhaps we could mend the fractures that had threatened to tear us apart. My siblings exchanged glances, their expressions a mix of surprise and concern, but I could sense a shared yearning for healing in the air. Later, as we gathered around the table, the atmosphere was different. The clinking of forks against plates accompanied quiet conversations, tinged with a newfound understanding. I caught Sarah's eye across the table. She smiled gently, a silent acknowledgement of the progress we had made. I could feel the weight of our shared history lifting, replaced by a cautious optimism. That evening, Alex and I stepped outside for some fresh air, the cool night wrapping around us like a comforting blanket. I leaned against the porch railing, the wood cool beneath my fingers. "Do you think we made a difference?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Alex looked at me, his eyes reflecting the starlit sky. "You opened the door, Mia. The real work will be in how you all move forward from here. But you've taken the first step, and that's what matters." As I gazed at the stars twinkling above, I felt a sense of relief wash over me. The scars from our confrontation would take time to heal, but I was willing to embrace the journey. I knew that the road ahead would be filled with challenges, but I was ready to face them. The connection I craved was within reach, and for the first time in a long while, I allowed myself to believe that we could rebuild our family, one conversation at a time. With a heart full of hope, I turned back to the warmth of our home, ready to embrace the future, knowing that love could conquer even the deepest of wounds. In the aftermath of our tumultuous family gathering, I found myself reflecting on the lessons learned. The warmth of the holiday lights flickered around me, a stark contrast to the emotional turmoil that had unfolded just days before. I had shared my story online, pouring my heart into a post that resonated with many who had faced similar struggles. The comforting scent of pine lingered in the air, reminding me of the fragile beauty of family connections.